Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are covering the difference between using the leading edge to hit your chip shots as opposed to using the bounce of the club to hit your chip shots. Kind of a confusing thing. We're here to end the confusion today in this video. Leading edge versus the bounce. Thanks for watching. So we've been hitting a lot of wedge shots out here. Excuse my dirty wedge, but let's talk about two things. Let's talk about the leading edge as opposed to the bounce of the club and what those two things are. Now the leading edge of the club is this very, very bottom part of the club right here. It's gonna be the lowest point of the club face. On our iron shots and any time that we're hitting downward on this golf ball, we're gonna be leading with the leading edge of that club. Now for wedge shots though, we have what's called the bounce on the bottom of clubs, right? So that's that part right down here on the bottom of the sole of the club, and that's going to give us the ability to let the club work underneath the golf ball. So not dig into the earth, but instead bounce off of it and work underneath the ball. Now in order to activate either the leading edge or the bounce for a wedge shot, we're going to do two different address positions. Let's talk about using the leading edge first. Now if we want to use the leading edge, that means that this club is going to be digging down into the earth, okay? That club's gonna be working in a descending motion and that leading edge is gonna grab underneath the ball. So what we're gonna do for the leading edge is we're gonna put our lead wrist into what's called a flexion, okay? Flexion, or a little bit of a bowed position with our lead wrist, okay? Because what that's gonna do is move this handle just a little bit more forward and have us more easily access that leading edge of that club. So I'm gonna put my lead wrist into slight flexion, and it's gonna have a little bit of a forward shaft lean here when I'm using the leading edge of the club and when I'm trying to address the ball using the leading edge of the club. Now, the opposite of that would be trying to hit the ball with the bounce of the club. Now, for the bounce of the club, we're gonna have to do two things. One, the first one is open up this club face a little bit. Now, when we open up the club face, when we're aligned on the ground, that's just gonna expose that bounce of the club a little bit more, which is what we're looking for when we're trying to use the bounce. Now, when we do that, when we open up the club face, notice that the handle of the club is gonna actually sit back just slightly. So we're gonna have to go into a different wrist position, which is called extension. And here, okay, it's gonna be a little bit of a cup in our lead wrist. So flexion, we're gonna be in when we're trying to hit down on the ball, we're trying to use the leading edge. If we're trying to use the bounce to hit wedge shots, we're gonna have our wrist in slight extension, which is a little bit of a cup, to more line up with where this handle is gonna be positioned, okay? So leading edge, we're gonna be a little bit more of a forward press, flexion in the lead wrist. For the bounce, that handle's gonna be back slightly, a little bit of extension or cup in that lead wrist. So now we know how to line up to both those shots. Let's talk about how those shots are gonna then react on the green after we hit them. So now when I'm trying to use the leading edge to hit the shot here, that would mean that I'm probably trying to have the ball roll out a little bit, okay? When I'm using the leading edge, when I have this handle press a little bit forward, we're gonna play a little bit of a bump and run where that ball is gonna hit and then release, you know, say 5, 6, 7 or so feet, depending on how much speed you have on that club. So now when I'm trying to hit a shot using the leading edge, like we talked about before, I'm gonna have that ball slightly back in my stance. My lead wrist is gonna be in flexion, which is gonna have this club shaft leaned a little bit forward, okay? My handle is gonna be more over my lead foot, my left foot here for a right-handed player. And when I hit this one, I'm gonna play for a slight rollout. So it should nip and then kind of roll out slightly to that hole. So you're gonna see that one there. I landed that one in the fringe. I hit it just a little bit behind the ball, but you can see what that shot's gonna do once it hits the green. I'm gonna hit one more here. I'm gonna go off my back foot, lead wrist into some slight flexion. You can watch how that thing reacts when it hits the green. So it's gonna bounce once or twice, grab, and then roll forward. And that's how we use the leading edge to hit these golf shots. All right guys, so now let's talk about using the bounce of the club. And as we talked about before, it's gonna have our wrist in a slight extension at address because that leading edge is opening up. That handle's gonna work backwards slightly. And now that I have the bounce out, my lead wrist is gonna be in a slight cup at address, right? We're gonna try and maintain that same position all the way through this golf shot. So I'm gonna open up this club face a bit. Again, bounce exposed, club face gonna be a little open. I'm trying to work this club underneath the ball. It's gonna work underneath it as opposed to when I was trying to hit this bump and run or in a little bit of a flexion using the leading edge. I'm working more downward into this. I'm now opening up the club. I have the bounce exposed. Now this club's designed to bounce and let that ball roll up the face and then release. So club face a little bit open, bounce exposed, handles back a touch. My lead wrist is in slight extension. I'm just gonna trust that and just know that I can really hit down on this thing. So good run at it there. I think you guys kind of see how it reacted on the green. It's not gonna roll out too much. Even that one rolled out a little bit. We're on a real tight lie over here, but this is actually a really good spot to break out the bounce of the club. Usually, actually, you know, we talk about, you know, wanting to hit an 8-iron from here, a putt from here, which I agree with, and there's going to be times for that, but what you really should be aware of is try and, you know, when you use the leading edge in a tight lie like this around the green, that's usually when people are going to dig it. Now these wedges are designed with the bounce to help you with shots like these off really tight lies where, if we're going to this recap one more time, that bounce is exposed, club face is open, my lead hand is in slight extension, and I'm just working down on this golf ball because I can now with the bounce. You can see that thing kind of slide right under. So I think you can see how that one reacted. That one stopped and rolled out just a little bit. I probably could have landed that a little bit further, closer to that hole. But those are the two ways that those two shots are going to react. So if I have the leading edge out, those are going to be the shots to maybe a little bit more of a back pin that I want to run it out to, have a little bit more green to work with. When I'm trying to use the bounce, that'll be a pin that's closer to me. I have to get up and down in a hurry and have it land nice and soft with not a lot of spin on it. So two cool shots to have in the bag. The difference is, one more time, if we're talking about how we align to those two, when I'm using the leading edge of the club, my lead wrist is going to be in flexion because my handle is a little bit forward. I'm going to line it up a little bit more with my back foot and have that club work down into the ground. When I'm using the bounce of the club face is going to open up. That bounce is now going to be exposed, and now if I have that club open, the handle is now going to work back slightly. So my lead wrist is now going to be in slight extension, which is a cup, and I'm going to really be able to confidently hit down onto the shot because the bounce of that club is designed to just go right underneath that ball. The ball pops up nice and soft, and using the bounce is a great shot to have in your bag. So both are going to have to be an asset in your game. You're not going to have one without the other. They're going to be used in different positions throughout the golf course, and it's good to have both of those perfected to have a really good short game. So that's the difference. That's it, guys. Bounce, leading edge, those two. I hope I answered some questions today on how you address the ball, what those shots should do when you hit them. If you enjoyed the video today, it would mean the world if you left a like below, a comment of what you want to see in future videos. That's it for today, folks. Bounce, leading edge, Shot Shaper Golf.